Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us and you have internalized exactly what it means, especially if you are a customer with the Standard Chartered Bank. Things, well, developments are going on, but the assurances have been made there by the officials about a smooth transition. Talking of transitions, let's now go into our techno discussion where we shall be attempting to look at the link between government funding and the quality of education and how this is impacting on performance across the country. This discussion is brought to us in light of revelations that a new report that has been outed by CSBAG has. It's being described as the impact of education financing on learner performance, and it was conducted in districts of Abim, Nabiratuk, Madiokolo, as well as Yumbe. And joining us to talk about exactly what the report has revealed, but also the state of affairs in as far as financing of education is concerned across the country, is Pascal Muhangi, an economist with CSBAG. Mr. Muhangi, welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you.
Let's go straight into what this particular report does bring to the fore, and then later maybe we can look at the greater picture that is Uganda's education sector and its problems and challenges with funding. What is the report?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Uganda. We did a study on education financing and how that impacts education quality, but focusing on education performance at primary level.
That's right.
And this was in Karamoja and West Nile. And what we discovered, first of all, there is a very huge link between education financing and education quality, especially when we talk about performance. And performance is in different, you can measure performance using different indicators. You can look at literacy, you can look at numeracy, you can look at the actual grades, what someone scores at P7 is what we call performance. And when we look at financing, in the first part, financing for education in Uganda has been increasing when we look at the global figures. Because for at least the last 4 years, it has been increasing from 3 trillion, 4 trillion, that is 22-23, 5 trillion, 23-24. Currently, we are at 6 trillion when you combine both the national and local government allocations for education. That is the education sub-program and the human capital development program.
Okay.
And you can, that picture shows you an increasing trend. But when you look at the share of education budget in the total budget.
Despite the increase.
Despite the global increase, this global figure of when you look at the allocation, the share of the education financing within the total budget, it is declining. From 13%, 12%, right now we are at 8%. So it communicates that much as we have increased financing, the prioritization of education within the budget is declining.
Within the budget is declining.
Because the share of the education budget within the total budget is going down, much as we have the increase in education financing. But also speaks to, it could be increasing when actually the per capita allocation is not increasing, because the enrollment is not the same over the years. Right now we have about 8.6 million people in primary education. So the enrollment is also increasing. And that's why we decided to draw a link. How does this impact our people's, especially performance? Look at literacy. Are they able to read? And numeracy. Are they able to add numbers? Do they have teachers? What is the people-teacher ratio? Do they have classrooms? What is the people-classroom ratio? Do they have facilities like wash facilities like latrines at school? Because all those ones impact the quality of education.
Impact on performance, that's right.
Do we have facilities like changing rooms for girls? When you go to places, these hard-to-reach places, Karamoja, Nabiratuka Beam, you go to West Nile, you go to Yumbe, those problems are very big. You find girls are dropping out of school because probably they don't have changing rooms. It lowers the hygiene levels, and people cannot keep at school when, especially for girls,
when they are unhealthy.
During those periods when they cannot have facilities where they can change from. And all that impacts the overall outcome of education, which is the education quality. You can look at it in terms of performance. And even when we look at the national examinations, those are the districts where you feel like you hear that this district only had 3 students, 3 people in first grade. It is not by chance that all the first grades are in Wakiso.
That is right. All
the first grades are in Kampala. As you move far away from town, the first grades keep reducing.
They keep on reducing. And that is attributed to aspects including lack of facilities, and lack of quality of intervention.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think the overview is pretty good, no doubt. It offers us some point of reflection. But when you talk about financing itself, in what form is this financing rolled out? Especially, we are talking about financing by government as an actor, but we also have other actors within the education system that are doing a lot of pumping money into some of these schools. That does improve, especially for those that are getting it from private actors within that particular region. Did you juxtapose those two scenarios, and maybe if you found out was there any fundamental difference between those that were receiving financing from the state and those that were getting money from private actors, including NGOs?
Okay, there are 2 types of funding. There is the public funding and the private funding. And for Uganda overall, the private funding is more than the public funding, which means that we, the private people, pump in more money than
more money into the education sector.
Actually, there was a World Bank study.
Deplorable.
There was a World Bank study that was done, I think, in 2019, and the finding was that for every 1,000 Uganda shillings that the government puts in education, a private person puts 1,400 shillings. To be exact, for 1,450 that.
Wow.
For every 1,000 Uganda shillings that the government puts in education, me and you put 1,450 shillings.
So which technically means we are still the ones putting in there, because the taxpayer is the one that pays on government.
Leave around the taxpayer. After paying the taxes, you go ahead and pay school fees. The out-of-pocket expense for education is so high. And when you talk about these other players that come into education, when you go to these far-rich areas, these private schools are mostly in Kampala and urban areas, because that is where the market is. That is where the people that can afford are. But when you go to places like Yumbi, you walk miles and miles before seeing a private school. So all the education is from the public schools. So in those areas, it is very, very important for government to be very intentional on funding public education. Because, first of all, the poverty levels are so high in those regions that even if you went and put a private school, you don't have
no one will
in
be
those
paying
schools.
School fees.
So it is very important for those regions that face unique challenges. Government should be very intentional when it comes to financing for education. Because I was in Yumbi, I think earlier this year, in K sub-county and Dravo sub-county. I was conducting some trainings, and you move miles and miles from one school to another school. You don't see any private school.
Okay.
So in those areas, the discussion of public-private schools is just
non-existent.
It stops here in Wakiso and Kampala. When you go to these areas, that discussion is not there.
All right. So with regard to recruitment of teachers and retention of qualified teachers, there is a new drive that has science teachers receiving a lot more stipend than their arts counterparts. And this is mainly in secondary schools.
True.
I don't know how this has impacted the quality of education in these schools, because the teachers themselves are impacted heavily, and the toll is unbearable for the arts teachers. What did you find out?
Now, this study was not focusing on secondary, but I'm going to give the answer based on the interaction I've had with government people. It has had two impacts, both to teachers but also to government.
Okay.
There is what we call moral hazard in economics.
Moral hazard.
Moral hazard is that you have insurance, health insurance, but let's talk about car, comprehensive car insurance. Because you have comprehensive car insurance, you don't get care, you drive anyhow. That is moral hazard.
After all,
if you knock,
you'll be taken care of.
Insurance is going to pay. This is what is happening. Government increased the salaries of science teachers by 400%. It is unheard of. That you're earning 800,000.
And then you get a 400% increment.
It is at the 1st of November. The next month, you're going to start earning 4 million. That jump is so big. What it has caused, now it is more profitable for me as a science teacher to resign. This is what it goes to resign, because when I resign, my pension is going to be computed at 4 million. I get a lot of money in pension, and I will remain earning half of the 4 million, which is 2 million. Don't you think it is better for me to resign?
Wait a minute.
So,
say that again.
Teachers are resigning.
Teachers are resigning
to get
in order to secure
amount of money at once in gratuity.
Oh my!
And after resigning, I'll keep getting half
of this
huge amount of money.
We've created a new problem.
That is a new problem to government, and it is pushing.
Wow.
The pension bill to government so high.
And no one cannot be, we can't fault anybody for resigning.
You can't stop.
It's within the law.
No, it is within the law. It is my right to resign anytime I want.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So that is one problem we are likely to face.
Interesting.
That is very profitable for me to resign. I will not be working. I'll be earning more than what I was earning before the increment. And I'll get this huge chunk of money that is calculated on my current rate. Because the way they calculate gratuity, they get your current salary and the number of years you have worked. The formula includes your current salary.
Current salary.
So
if your teacher has been earning, this introduces something very, very pertinent that ought to be given attention. If a teacher has been working for the last 20 years, earning 400,000 Uganda shillings, and then because of the modalities of being a science teacher and the fact that increments have been done, that goes to 3 point something.
They were given 4 million.
The 4 million.
Yes.
So a guy who has been earning 500,000, there about 800. Okay. Yes, yeah. The next month, Jesus Christ, this country.
The difference was so huge, and
something we need to. I don't know what we ought to do, but
there was no proper thought in
proper planning and thought in this.
Because
no one anticipated mass resignations.
Yes, that for me, I can resign and I'll keep getting 2 million.
You keep getting the money, but again, you've created a new problem, another set of problems, including the fact that there's a shortage of science teachers.
Very good. Now, people that were very skilled are getting out. The people that are remaining, that are still earning the 800, are not satisfied.
They're not satisfied.
So basically, no one is satisfied, because even the one who has money wants to go out.
And that drastically drops the level, the performance levels and the quality of education that our learners are getting.
True.
Interesting there. All right, that's a discussion. I'm sure we shall have to find a little bit more time, especially within the new year, to discuss that. How is the landscape like for refugee learners and host communities, especially in West Nile? Quality of education.
Yes.
There was, before you submit of that, I just want to bring it into context. There is the tendency by stakeholders who are intervening for refugee communities to direct so much resources to catering for refugee communities, and the host communities think it is unfair. It's also another disconnect that we are facing as a country. What did you find out on that?
For places like Yumbe, in some schools, the refugees are more than the local population. And that puts a lot of pressure on the facilities, because the facilities have not changed much. If a school had 7 classrooms, they still have 7. But now, because of the refugees, if they had 500 pupils, they have 1,500. And that's why in some areas, the teacher to pupil ratio is in 1 to 90.
1 to 90.
In some areas, the classroom to pupil ratio is in 1 to 100. The recommended ratios is 1 to 53. But now they are exceeding by huge margins, and it is because of these challenges like refugees, especially in Yumbe. Yumbe has a lot of refugees. When you go to those areas that are near camps, there are so many refugees that are within the local schools, and they should be, government should be intentional about it. Bring solutions that are very specific to those regions. It is not one size fits all. When you're financing, because now the UPE grant, it is 20,000 throughout. But I think in areas that face unique challenges, there should be other
interventions,
forms of financing that supplement, like the UPE grant or SNE grant. And also in those areas, the number of SNE, that is special needs education. The number of people with special needs are quite many, because when you look at the numbers, you find that, for example, compared to Shema, the number of SNE people in schools in Yumbe are more than in Shema.
Wow.
So when you're financing special needs education,
in Yumbe,
more focus
on the Yumbe people.
And one of the reasons is that there are a lot of NGOs. There are a lot of NGOs in Shema. People educating parents that if the child has these challenges, they can still study. But in some areas, they're not there. So probably in some areas, we have special needs people that are not in school, because the interventions bring them to schools have not been as in those areas.
Interesting there. Yeah. And that leads us to our very last question on the role of advocacy organizations in calling for and supporting the implementation of the recommendations that are in the report, given the fact that as researchers you have seen what can work and what ought to work. Share with us, lastly, the recommendations and how the advocacy network is working to ensure that they see the light of day.
As usual for advocacy organizations, NGOs, it is to continue beating the drum, informing government. And for like CSBAG, they have been participating in the budget right from the start up to the end.
Up the end, yeah, sure.
So now it is getting this information out there, creating awareness that these challenges exist. But sometimes government does not know about the challenges. Or maybe they know and they don't talk. Especially the local communities. Because sometimes you are in meetings with government and you talk about things and they seem to be surprised. I don't get it.
Okay. So it's convenient for them to act surprised sometimes. Government knows better, more than many of the organizations that.
True.
Yeah.
So it is continuing creating awareness, building capacities of the local communities to speak about these issues. But also I think for me, for government, especially the Minister of Education, should be intentional in financing education, especially in these regions or districts that face unique challenges.
Yeah.
To bring the issue of equality, because the more we have some regions or districts having better education compared to others, then you're going to have these regions developing at a faster rate compared to these other regions.
Loop-sided development trajectory.
So we need to be intentional in creating equity or equality in terms of ensuring that there is equality, there is sufficient financing for education interventions, especially in these regions that face unique challenges like Karamoja and West Nile.
Okay, thank you very much, Pascal Muhangi, economist with the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, popularly known as CSBAG, for bringing these perspectives to us, and of course revelations that shock the conscience. Learning, for example, that teachers who have just been told that we are going to improve your salary because your science teachers, in line with government's push for science, are opting to resign because the existing frameworks within the public service protocols can afford them the advantage of getting money on the premise of what they earn at the moment they resign. That's a whole new challenge and a set of problems that are beginning to emerge. Whether interventions by the government will quickly address this particular one remains to be seen. Here on Morning at NTV, we're glad to amplify these and many more issues. We shall take a break, but the program does continue. Do stay with us.